Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of the Oxrageous podcast. Well, isn't it great to have football season rolling? We actually have some real football to talk about. All those months of speculation, especially with a new coach coming on board, and we actually saw some real football. And we've got a lot more coming, and it is a very, very fun time, especially to be a Gator fan and be in a new era. Instead of going off on kind of an opening monologue on what I thought, I'm just going to jump right into Gator Chatter questions, and that's pretty much going to cover everything I was going to say anyway. So let's get to the first question from our Gator Chatter members. This first one's from Gator Mac 2112, and it is there any reason for Coach Mack to continue this 2-quarterback rotation? Greer displayed that he has much more zip on his passes, is more accurate, and gets the ball out quicker than Harris. He also puts to rest any thoughts that he wasn't as mobile as Harris. All of this in his first game action as a Gator. The fact that Harris has 6 starts under his belt should put him at an advantage, but it doesn't. Surely Coach Mack can see what we see and make the right decision. Well, as you can see, Gator Mack wasn't just asking a question there. He was putting forth his own monologue. So I will say it's easy for us as fans to sit on our couches and say these kinds of things. The coaches are the ones that have worked with these guys in practice for all these months. Personally, I hate 2-quarterback systems. And from what I know of Coach Mack, I don't think he really has a history of 2-quarterback systems either. Like most people, he likes one guy, but it's just a matter of getting one that he's comfortable with. I also think it's easy to get caught up in the hype of one game against a really lousy team and think that it's going to be that way all year. One thing you also got to remember about Will Greer is he did fumble. We forget that in all his great play, that he was hit and he caught the ball up rather easily. That's a bit alarming, especially with this offensive line, knowing whatever quarterback is back there is probably going to get hit a bit this year. I do like Greer better, and I've said that the whole time, because I think he's more of a natural quarterback than Harris is. Things come more naturally to them. Harris is better when he's rolling around making plays. Greer is a classic drop-back guy, and he has been for many years now. It's been a long time since we've had a quarterback back there that could really instill fear in the defense by throwing darts around there. And I think Greer could be that guy, but we got a long way to go. But I really hope we don't keep this rotation thing up into SEC play. Hopefully it'll come into, we know it's going to come into play this week, probably a similar deal this week against East Carolina that we had against New Mexico State. But after that, hopefully Mack will pick a guy and we'll go with it. If it's Harris, it's Harris. We're going to have to trust the coaches on that one. Okay, next question. Other than Greer, which newcomer were you most impressed with? And MJM Gator asked that question. Well, I'll tell you something. How about the young tight ends? Last week we talked about the tight ends, and we thought through Mack's history had shown he likes to use tight ends a lot, 2 tight end sets, when we hadn't been using tight ends at all at Florida. But I talked a lot about Jake McGee, the senior, who's definitely the leader of the pack. But the young guys coming up behind him, Ciante Lewis and DeAndre Goolsby, they were both really sneaky against New Mexico State. Goolsby's the kind of guy who's just always sneaking around back there and standing there wide open. And Ciante Lewis, of course, he had the 2 touchdowns. Our quarterbacks threw for 382 yards against New Mexico State, and 100 of them were to 3 tight ends, 7 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the newcomer, Ciante Lewis, was the guy that jumped out at me. Lewis, Goolsby, and McGee, I think, are going to be big weapons for us this year. 7 catches, like I said in that first game. You got to remember, we only had 4 catches in all of 2013 from our tight ends. So I think it's a great sign. Next question. Which running back should be second stringer behind Taylor? And you are Gator Bait asked that question. And it's just too early to tell. I mean, I haven't seen enough yet. I don't think anyone's seen enough yet. I thought Scarlett and Cronkright were both solid. But I think we all need to see more. I think whoever is going to be the second stringer is the one who's better at pass protection. which is something that the young guys normally struggle with. Again, with our offensive line, whoever blocks better, I think, is going to play more. Next question: will the defensive line get pushed around that easy when we hit SEC play? And Carib Gator asked that question. Well, play of the defensive line was a bit shaky in the first half against New Mexico State. Florida gave up 201 yards of offense and a couple of pretty big plays. Didn't see as much pressure on the quarterback than I was expecting to see. And there was a lot of grumbling about Jeff Collins and, oh, here we go with this bend but don't break crap defense, which is kind of his reputation where he came from. However, I think we need to give a little bit of credit to New Mexico State's quarterback, who I thought was a really scrappy guy, fearless guy. He didn't seem intimidated at all to be in the swamp, and he rolled around and made some pretty good plays. Obviously, things changed after halftime. New Mexico State had -1 yards of total offense after halftime, so I think it's fair to say we made some halftime adjustments. Will the defensive line get pushed around? I don't think so. I think our defensive line is only going to get better as the year goes on. Next question, and this is by Gator JB. If you rank the SEC teams, where would you put Florida now that we've seen most of the teams play? Well, let me comment primarily on the East, since that's really what matters to us. But I do want to make one comment about Auburn. My father actually gave me a call, and he made the observation that upon watching the Auburn game that they had slowed down their offense. They went from somewhere around 90 plays a game that they were doing last year down to around 60. And they'd slowed everything way down. And why do you think they did that? I mean, has Will Muschamp already fundamentally changed the way Auburn plays football? Could he have gone and said, hey, got to slow things down, my defense is getting tired, etc. My point is, Gus Malzahn's brilliance is in that offense and in that hurry-up offense. And if he slows it down, they take away all their advantages. I guess what I'm getting at is I don't think it's going to end well at Auburn, and the hiring of Muschamp could have created a chain reaction that's not going to be good for them. But that's not our problem anymore. Let me get back to the East. Georgia did what they're supposed to do. As Nick Chubb keeps chubbing along, I think that's 9 in a row 100-yard games. He's a great player, and he's going to be in the Heisman running this year. They've been the favorites. There's really no reason why they shouldn't be the favorites still at this point. The other teams in the East, though, they really look like garbage. Tennessee, in hilarious fashion, gave up 30 points in 3 quarters to Bowling Green, including 424 yards passing from Bowling Green's quarterback. 424 yards and 557 yards total Bowling Green had on Tennessee. Tennessee has no business being ranked, and I'm really looking forward to playing them in a few weeks. Then we had Kentucky. This is a team that's supposed to be on the rise. This is a team that's supposed to give us all we can handle in 2 weeks when we go to Kentucky. This is the team that's finally supposed to break the streak. And what did they do? They played Louisiana Lafayette, and they were tied up 33-33 when they finally had the go-ahead touchdown with 57 seconds left in the game and managed to beat those guys. Woo-hoo for them. Louisiana Lafayette rushed for 247 yards on Kentucky and had 479 yards overall. And these are the 2 teams we're supposed to be really scared of this year. These are the 2 teams that are supposed to break the streak. They should be extremely concerned with how awful their defenses looked. In terms of South Carolina, we saw how they looked on Thursday night. Who would have thought that a Steve Spurrier team, the passing game would really be their weakness? Who would have thought that? But they look completely out of sorts offensively. They look pathetic, really. So who in the East is supposed to frighten us? Who's supposed to frighten the Florida Gators? Missouri? Missouri managed to rush for 88 yards on 33 carries against Southeast Missouri State. Not exactly dominant on the ground there. And what about Vanderbilt, of course? They lost to Western Kentucky, which is flat out embarrassing. So do you see what I mean about the East being takeable this year? Who's to say that Florida can't beat Georgia? We beat Georgia last year. So I think it comes down to Georgia. I think if Florida beats Georgia, They win the East and they're in the SEC championship game. It's really the weakest the East has been in a long, long time. Feeling pretty good about that. While we're rebuilding, it's really nice for the East to be so weak for us. Okay, another question. MJM Gator. What do you expect in week 2 with a much better opponent? Well, I hadn't checked to see what East Carolina did this week until this morning. I didn't check and see what they did in week 1. I hadn't paid any attention to them. And I pulled it up and saw that they'd played an FCS team, Towson. I think it's pronounced Towson. And they managed to beat them by 8 points, 28-20. And Towson had 416 yards of offense on East Carolina. And East Carolina's quarterback, Blake Kemp, threw for 230 yards on 29 completions. So he's obviously throwing a lot of short passes out there. But, I'm not so sure East Carolina is going to be a much better opponent than New Mexico State after all. Frankly, I think East Carolina sucks. And we already beat them this year in January. I think we're better and they're worse. So I still don't know if it's going to be much of a test for us. I don't know if their quarterback's going to be good as good as the one we just faced. So I'm just, we're going to go through this rotation thing again. I'm looking forward to getting past this week and moving on to SEC play because I really humble a few people who have been shoveling dirt on our grave. Really looking forward to that. Okay. Dirty South Swamp asked a question. And by the way, congratulations to Dirty South Swamp on the new son he just had. Glad everyone's doing well. His question is, will Coach Mack put on some socks once the fall temperatures roll in? I think he will. I think he will, but probably not till more towards the end of the season. I think it gets a lot colder in Gainesville than a lot of people outside of Florida realize. All right, I'm glad we addressed that one. Okay, what's the atmosphere and buzz this week following last night's performance? Do you sense a real change in outlook and expectations? That was another question by Dirty South Swamp. There is a lot of buzz, and it's so nice to have a lot of buzz. It's been many years since we had a lot of buzz. Listening to people that went to the game, there's an outstanding turnout. There was even an outstanding turnout from the student section, which had been dead for several years now. Now, a lot of people are still upset that the students left a little early, but one step at a time. Just getting them to the game is step one. The next is getting them to stay there. But the biggest word thrown around since the game is fun. Everyone had fun. Watching the game was fun. We got to sling the ball around. 14 different receivers got the ball. Florida only had one penalty. It was just tremendous. We actually went into a game with a game plan and executed it, and everyone had a great time. It was like real football again. As far as expectations, have they been raised? Yeah, I think they have. Now, hopefully, we're not getting into the point again where you have, oh no, we got the spoiled Gator fan again. Oh no, their expectations. I don't think the expectations are that high. But I think a lot of the people saying we were going to win 4, 5, 6 games are wavering a little bit, which is ridiculous really with as weak as the East is. This team can win the East. And it's time to start thinking that way again. It's time for Gator fans to get their confidence back. It's time for us to start looking other fans in the eye again. On Gator Chatter, this is our first game of the year on Gator Chatter under the new coach. We had a fantastic time. The chat box was rocking. Everyone was thrilled. It was one big party in there. And everyone behaved themselves, Every week it seems like 1 or 2 people have a complete meltdown and kind of have to be escorted off, but that didn't happen this time. As far as all the people out there watching that lurk, that like to read Gator Chatter but don't like to register and join in, why don't you join in? Sign up. Come give us your opinion. Make your voice heard. We'll try to be nice to you. We try to be nice to new people as long as you're not a complete idiot. We're going to be nice to you. So come on and tell us what you think of the Gators. But isn't it great to be back in football season? You know, and this week's podcast is going to be a little bit short. No guests this week. I'll probably continue on with those as we get into SEC play. I got a few lined up for this season. But again, I just wanted to give my thanks to those people who listen to these podcasts, who come to Gator Chatter, who participate. If you'd like to subscribe to these videos, you can go to YouTube and subscribe to the Oxrageous podcast, and they'll be downloaded automatically. You'll get an email when they're up. The audio version is also still being done. It's available on iTunes or on my personal favorite app, Stitcher, which is a free app on either iTunes or Google Play, and those will be downloaded automatically as well. So if you don't have time to sit down and watch these videos, you can at least download them to your phone and maybe listen to my beautiful voice in your car. But again, thank you very much for your support. Very happy to be here. Very happy to have kicked off another football season, which looks like it's going to be fun. It looks like it's going to be exciting. And between you and me, I really want to stick it to some rival fans, and I really want to stick it to some of these idiot pundits out there picking us to lose. I want to stick it to USA Today, who had Florida ranked 69th to start the year. You know, I want to stick it to those guys in 2 weeks picking Kentucky to beat Florida. It's preposterous. It's ridiculous. I think Coach Mack has us on the right track. So that's it. That's it. Nice, short, to the point podcast this week. Appreciate you listening. Everybody have a fantastic week, and go Gators.